What's up guys, Joey here of Tech, and it's around the middle of 2021 and we've already seen a lot of phones get released so far this year. But which ones are the best? Well, we're back to bring you our top smartphones lists. In this video, we'll be talking about our top picks for mid-range smartphones under 20,000 pesos. Here are our parameters. All phones in this list have been launched in the first half of 2021 and are officially or readily available here in the Philippines. Prices range from 15,000 pesos to 20,000 pesos. And finally, we have them arranged by price from highest to lowest. Let's start. First up on the list, we have the OnePlus Nord CE 5G. OnePlus has been moving further and further into mid-range and entry-level territory in the last couple of years, and now it has brought us affordable 5G smartphones like this. The Nord CE 5G has a 6.43-inch 90Hz AMOLED screen and is powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 755G chipset with an Adreno 619 GPU, 8 or 12GB of RAM, 128 or 256GB of internal storage, and a 4,500 mAh battery. It also features triple rear cameras, a 64MP main, 8MP ultrawide, 2MP mono, and in front a 16MP selfie camera. Aside from its 5G connectivity, perhaps the biggest draw here is Oxygen OS. The OnePlus Nord CE 5G is priced at 19,990 pesos for the 12-256 configuration and 16,990 pesos for the 8+128 configuration. Next up, we have the OPPO Reno5 4G variant. This one is almost exactly the same as the 5G version with the 6.43-inch 90Hz AMOLED screen, quad rear cameras, and well, the entire design itself. What differentiates the 4G variant is its Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G chipset and lack of a 12GB of RAM and 256GB internal storage variant, as this one comes in with 8GB of RAM and 128GB internal storage. The OPPO Reno5 4G is priced at 18,999 pesos. Moving on, we have the Samsung Galaxy A52 4G. This one has the same exact treatment as the Reno5 4G, sharing the same exact specs as its 5G counterpart aside from the chipset. The A52 4G comes in with a 6.5-inch Super AMOLED 90Hz display, Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G chipset with an Adreno 618 GPU, 8GB of RAM, 256GB of internal storage, and a 4,500 mAh battery. It features a quad rear camera setup consisting of a 64MP OIS main, 12MP ultrawide, 5MP macro, and 5MP depth sensor. Up front, a 32MP selfie camera. It also features an IP67 water and dust resistance rating and AKG stereo speakers. Those things, coupled with the 256GB of storage, this is definitely one of my top recommendations in this entire list. The Samsung Galaxy A52 4G is priced at 18,990 pesos. Next up on the list is the Vivo V21e. This entry from Vivo has a large focus on cameras with its triple rear camera setup consisting of a 64MP main, 8MP ultrawide, and 2MP macro. It also comes with a 44MP eye autofocus front camera. It comes in with a 6.44-inch AMOLED display, Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G chipset, 8GB of RAM, 128GB internal storage, and a 4,000 mAh battery. The Vivo V21e is priced at 17,999 pesos. Up next, we have the TCL10 5G. Being a phone made by a company known for TVs, this one has a large focus on its display. It comes with a 6.53-inch Full HD display that supports HDR10 and has the NXT Vision engine that enhances and allows loads of customization for your image on screen. Aside from that, it's powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G chipset with 6GB of RAM, 128GB internal storage, and a 4,500 mAh battery. It features quad rear cameras, a 64MP main, 8MP ultrawide, 5MP macro, and 2MP depth. Up front, a 16MP front camera. Given its great display, powerful chipset, and 5G connectivity, definitely another top option in this list for me. The TCL10 5G is priced at 17,990 pesos. Moving on, we have a crowd favorite, the POCO X3 5G. This one comes in with a 6.67-inch AMOLED display with a Full HD resolution, 120Hz refresh rate, 360Hz touch sampling rate, and support for HDR10+. And as if that wasn't enough, it also features a Snapdragon 870 5G chipset, 6GB of RAM, 128GB internal storage, and a 4520 mAh battery. For cameras, it has a triple rear setup consisting of a 48MP main, 8MP ultrawide, and 5MP telemacro, as well as a 20MP front camera. It's also got some interesting liquid cooling technology as well as high-res dual speakers. Great screen, great audio, 5G, powerful chipset. There's a lot to love about this phone, which is why it's my #1 pick out of this whole list. The POCO X3 5G is priced at 17,990 pesos. That's the 6+128 variant. The 8+256 variant is outside the price range for this list at 20,990 pesos, but we'll include it anyway since it's within 1,000 pesos, whatever. Anyway, next on the list is the Realme 8 Pro. This comes from the higher end of Realme's premier mid-range series this year and has quite carefully selected features. It has a 6.4-inch Full HD Super AMOLED display that only has a 60Hz refresh rate but does have a 180Hz touch sampling rate, which I think is actually way more important when it comes to gaming. That's then paired with a Snapdragon 720G chipset, 8GB of RAM, 128GB internal storage, and a 4500 mAh battery. Cameras are also another strong point with its quad rear configuration consisting of a 108MP main sensor, 8MP ultrawide, 2MP macro, and 2MP mono sensor, as well as its 16MP front camera. The Realme 8 Pro is priced at 16,990 pesos. Coming up next is the OPPO A54 5G. This one sports a 6.5-inch Full HD IPS display and is powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 485G chipset with an Adreno 619 GPU, 6GB of RAM, 128GB internal storage, and a 5000 mAh battery. It comes with quad rear cameras, a 48MP main sensor, 8MP ultrawide, 2MP macro lens, and 2MP mono sensor. Up front is a 16MP selfie camera. Its 5G chipset and large battery are its biggest draws for sure, and is one of the more affordable phones in this list with its price of 15,999 pesos. Don't worry, we're almost done guys, and here we have none other than the POCO X3 Pro. You can pretty much just think of the X3 Pro as the F3 5G without the 5G and AMOLED display. It comes in with a 6.67-inch IPS display with a 120Hz refresh rate and quick 240Hz touch sampling rate. It features a Qualcomm Snapdragon 860 chipset with an Adreno 640 GPU, 8GB of RAM, 256GB internal storage, and a larger 5160 mAh battery. It also features the high-res dual speakers, IR blaster, and liquid cooling technology found in the F3 5G. Both offer different advantages, so it'll boil down to either your personal preference or your budget. The POCO X3 Pro is priced at 15,990 pesos, that's for the 8+256 variant. The 6+128 variant is cheaper and is featured in our under 15K video, so check that out if you want to see that price range. And last but not least, we have the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G. This one's a fun, recently launched phone from Samsung that's on the lower end of the spectrum for me given a couple of compromises. It has a 6.5-inch 720p TFT display, a MediaTek Dimensity 725G chipset, 8GB of RAM, 128GB internal storage, and a 5000 mAh battery. For cameras, it's got a quad rear module consisting of a 48MP main, 8MP ultrawide, 5MP macro lens, and 2MP depth sensor, as well as a 13MP front camera. This list is simply arranged by price from highest to lowest, but if there was a numerical ranking, we'd probably put this one somewhere between 7 and 10. It's not a bad smartphone by any means, it's just that the competition is really tough. The Samsung Galaxy A32 5G is priced at 15,990 pesos. And that wraps it up for this list of our top 10 smartphones under 20,000 pesos for mid-2021. Which ones are your favorite? Let us know in the comments down below and stay tuned for our under 30,000 peso list. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to our channel for more content, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads, and be sure to visit yugatech.com for the latest tech news and reviews. Again, this has been Joey, and I'll see you guys in the next one.